Today's webinar will help teachers, parents, and students prepare for the new format of the MCAS 2.0 math test. This webinar is brought to you by JFYNetWorks, a Boston-based nonprofit. JFYNet offers blended learning instructional support programs to help raise individual and school performance measures. JFYNet brings online curriculum and assessments into the classroom and works with teachers to provide individualized instruction to help students achieve measured skill gains. The biggest difference between the 2019 test and past years is that the new MCAS 2.0 test administered in May will no longer be paper-based. It will be online. As a student, a teacher, or a parent, your first job is to become familiar with the mechanics of the online test. You can see on the screen the difference between the old MCAS and the new MCAS 2.0. The first question is from the MCAS 2.0 practice test on the DESE website. This MCAS 2.0 question is a technology-enhanced item. The student selects a point on the screen to plot the correct answer. The second question on the screen is from the old 2018 paper-based test. In the paper version, the student writes an answer in a test booklet. The Test Nav tutorial allows students, parents, and school staff to explore the test mechanics. The website also provides practice MCAS Pearson practice tests. Navigating through the test, understanding how to use all available tools, and practicing new question formats are all very important preparations. Most students are comfortable with computers, but this test format is not like anything they've seen before. You don't want any surprises on test day. Preparation is the key to building confidence and avoiding frustration and needless mistakes. To practice test mechanics and tools, direct students to the Test Nav 8 tutorial on the DESE website, following the link you see on the screen. To use the Test Nav tutorial or take a practice test, sign in as a guest. It's best to do this tutorial as a group exercise so that students don't just click through. Make sure to concentrate on the most relevant sections for your subject. After students click on the Test Nav 8 tutorial and sign in as a guest, they will go to the first page of the tutorial, which you see on the screen. The first page gives you a basic introduction and directions on how to move through the tutorial. This is good navigational practice because students move through the tutorial the same way they will move through the actual MCAS 2.0 test. You will see examples from all grade levels because the navigation skills are similar. The mechanics of navigating through the test are the same in the math and ELA tests. A student moves through the test by using the blue arrows on the upper left of the screen. The red boxes on screen 4 of the Test Nav tutorial point out the basic components that students use during the real test. Screen 5 of the Test Nav tutorial shows you how to use the review button. A student can use the review button at any time before submission to return to a question. Selecting the review button will show you which questions you have answered and which you have left unanswered or bookmarked. Screen 6 in the tutorial introduces students to the Bookmark tool. When you select the blue ribbon on the toolbar, you will see all of the questions you have bookmarked. Students can skip questions by bookmarking them and returning to them before submitting their answers. If a student spends time working on a question, he or she should put in an answer. It's better to put in an answer and bookmark it if he or she doesn't feel confident about it. Then the student can return and review it before submitting. You can experiment with bookmarking on screen 6 by selecting the Bookmark button. If you select the Bookmark button, you will bookmark the screen. Then you can select the Review button to see your bookmarked question. Remind students to bookmark carefully. If students bookmark too many questions, the tool will not be useful because time will run out. There are many useful tools in MCAS 2.0 that will help you answer questions. Students should familiarize themselves with tools in the toolbar, drop-down menu, and the exhibits, labeled Other Tools. Screen 11 of the TestNav 8 tutorial shows the toolbar, which includes the pointer, ruler, notepad, calculator, and answer eliminator. You will also see the drop-down menu, which is where you sign out, and the exhibits on the right-hand side, which include the reference sheet and session directions. On screen 12 of the TestNav 8 tutorial, you can practice using all the tools in the toolbar. Some tools only appear on questions where you are allowed to use them, like the ruler in the calculator. The notepad is only for the ELA test. You will see more detail about these tools later. Not every question has every tool. Students should understand how to use every tool that is available to them. Using tools properly will help answer questions and build confidence. The pointer tool will be very important in the test. Students will use the pointer for selection of multiple choice questions, dragging answers, marking objects, and turning off tools. To practice using the pointer, go to screen 13 of the TestNav tutorial. The ruler tool is used for measuring objects on tests below grade 10. Here you see the ruler tool being used to measure objects. Select the ruler to use it, drag it, and then select the pointer to move it. Don't forget that the circles rotate the ruler. You can try measuring objects on screen 14 of TestNav. The calculator tool will only be available for use in session 2 of the 7th through 10th grade math tests. The calculator is in the toolbar. You just select it to activate. Students can practice using the calculator on screen 17 of TestNav by selecting it. Make sample entries and close it by clicking the X in the right-hand corner. Although the answer eliminator is primarily used for the ELA test, some math students may still want to use it if they are debating between two choices. The answer eliminator is the X icon in the middle part of the toolbar, next to the pointer on session 1 and the calculator on session 2. Screen 18 of the TestNav tutorial gives you a basic explanation of the answer eliminator tool. On screen 19 of the TestNav, you can click on the icon and then click on the answer to mark out obvious choices. If you change your mind, just click on the answer again, and the X will disappear. This tool will be particularly handy if a student begins to lose confidence, because the answer eliminator helps focus on the best choices. Another important tool is the math reference sheet for grades 5 through 10. The reference sheet provides basic geometry and measurement conversion formulas. It includes information required for tests at different grade levels. This handy sheet is a student's best friend during the exam for geometry and measurement questions, because he or she will not have to worry about memorizing these formulas or conversions in order to apply them. Students should look at this sheet before the test, even if they haven't done the TestNav tutorial. The reference sheet is always in the middle of the right side of the screen. You can select and drag it for practice on screen 29 of TestNav. On geometry or measurement questions, click on the exhibits icon in the middle of the right side of the screen to double-check your geometry formula or measurement equivalencies. The reference sheet gives the formula for the area of a triangle. This question 2 from session 2 on the 6th grade MCAS is easy to answer if you plug in the formula. The reference sheet is useful for all grade levels from 5 to 10. You can see another example of using the reference sheet on this 10th grade example, which is question 13 of session 2. The question compares the volume of an oblique and a right cylinder. The given formula on the reference sheet only says cylinder, so you have to know that the formulas for right and oblique cylinders are the same. If you use the formula, you will see that the volumes of both cylinders are identical because the dimensions are the same. Students may be able to answer at least the first part of some constructed response questions by simply inserting a formula from the reference sheet. Even a partial answer gets some points. Don't throw points away by forgetting to use this valuable tool. The question on the screen is from the 10th grade practice test. Just look at the reference sheet and choose the correct formula for trigonometric ratios. You can answer this question by using the calculator and applying the formula. Practice new formats so that students feel comfortable on test day. Here you see the screens for the TestNav tutorial and a practice test. Start with something easy to get comfortable with the formats. A good way to practice new formats is to use the TestNav tutorial to introduce students to the formats and then reinforce this by choosing specific examples in a practice test. In the next few slides, we will go over examples of formats in the TestNav tutorial and test items on practice tests that are examples of these formats. You can have multiple tests and the TestNav tutorial open at the same time. Most students will be familiar with choosing multiple selection, but it is still helpful to remind them about this type of question. Multiple choice only requires one correct answer, but multiple selection requires students to choose a specific number of answers. Students should read every question carefully so that they choose the correct number of answers. If you choose more than the required number of answers, a warning sign will pop up. Not following directions exactly can cost points. Screen 38 of TestNav tutorial and Session 1 Question 5 of the 5th grade test are good examples for practicing multiple selections. You can use a test from any grade to practice multiple selections. Drag and drop may be new to some students. Use the pointer to drag the answer. Students will have to drag one or more items to complete some questions. The number of items to drag will be set by the test question. This screen shows how to practice drag and drop. You can try this on screen 35 of the TestNav tutorial. After the drag and drop in the tutorial, here is a practice example on question 6 of the first session in the 10th grade test. The question shows students that they will have to make choices. Remind them that they will not use every choice in most drag and drop questions. In the lower grades, students may be asked to mark objects. They may also be asked to mark points on a plane or number line. There is an exercise for practicing marking objects on screen 36 of the TestNav tutorial. This is very simple, so you would only practice marking objects with students in the lower grades. For students in the higher grades, you may want to practice marking number lines and plotting coordinate plane points on the practice tests. Students should practice plotting points on a plane. Here is a good example from Session 1, Question 4B of the 5th grade test. In the higher grades, students will plot points to create a line that represents an equation. Filling in the blank should be familiar to most students, but it's still a good idea to practice an example or two. Remind students to use the period for decimals and the hyphen for negative numbers. To remove an answer, use the backspace or delete keys. Students can practice filling in the blank on screen 37 of the TestNav tutorial. Then they can reinforce practicing this format by working on question 3 in session 1 of the 10th grade test. One tool that may be confusing is the equation editor, which is also covered in the TestNav tutorial. There are different equation editors for grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and grade 10. Make sure your students understand all symbols and that they know how to use all of the options. With the equation editor, you can also eliminate, repeat, or clear your entire answer by using the icons directly above the answer box. The equation editor will allow you to easily enter mathematical symbols to complete your answer. You can use screen 38 of the TestNav tutorial, or go to MCAS Pearson Support using the link on the screen, and project the PDF of the equation editor to your class and review what is available. If you use TestNav, first explain how all symbols and buttons in the equation editor function in screen 38. Students can practice using the equation editor by doing the Try It on screen 38 of the TestNav tutorial. This example shows the basic equation editors for grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. Students can use this exercise to practice simple equations and become familiar with the editor. The equation editor has the required symbols that students will need to complete questions in each grade. If preparing for the grade 10 test, students should go over the equation editor for the 10th grade. After you go over the guides and symbol keys in the PDF at the MCAS Pearson support site, the link of which is on the screen, try a problem on the practice test. To get comfortable using the equation editor, try question 5 in session 1 of the grade 10 test. Some formats that are not covered in the TestNav tutorial may be worth going over, especially for the younger grades. The 6th grade test has good examples of these formats. Pulling down is a new format, and the younger grades may need to practice. Although pull-down answer choices should be easy for most students, it's still a good idea to practice. Use the first question in session 2 of the 6th grade test to practice pulling down. Students will need to draw or rotate objects on a coordinated plane. Here is an example of drawing objects from question 6 in session 1 of the 6th grade test. Students will see how plotting the points correctly gives them the required shape. Students may also need to practice creating graphs. Students should be familiar with basic graphs such as dot plots, line graphs, bar graphs, and histograms. They will usually have to drag and drop to complete the graph. On question 12, session 1 of the 10th grade test, you will need to complete a histogram. This is a good example that will help with creating graphs on MCAS 2.0. When students come to the end of a test session, there is a screen that says End of Session. The orange button shows the number of questions that were not answered, and the blue button shows the questions that were bookmarked. Select the orange or blue buttons to go back and change answers at this point. Even though this is the end of the test, answers can still be changed and any question may be reviewed before final submission of the section. The browser cannot be closed at this point to finish the test. Once all of the questions have been answered and the student feels ready, click Submit Session. There is one final chance to go back and change answers, but once the word Yes is clicked on the exit warning, it is not possible to go back into the session. Submit Section must be clicked to end the session properly and go on to the next session. To look at these screens before the test, go to screen 8 in the TestNav 8 tutorial. Sometimes students may need a bathroom break during the test session. With the proctor's permission, a student can sign out of the test and then resume later during the real test. Go to the upper right-hand corner and click the person icon. Click Sign Out of TestNav and click Save and Return Later. Remember, you can only do this if the proctor gives permission. We recommend completing 2 practice tests. Students should do one test below their grade level for practice and another test at grade level. For 10th grade students, a quick way to see how much algebra a student remembers is to take the 8th grade practice test on the MCAS Pearson support site. The link appears on the screen. Working on the 8th grade test is a good tactic to concentrate on the mechanics of the test. Although the algebra concepts on the 8th grade test are easier than the algebra concepts on the 10th grade test, the 8th grade test will still show how much the student remembers about essential topics such as functions, graphing, slope, and creating equations from word problems. These concepts and skills are central components of the mathematics test, and mastering these topics will be an important key to getting a good score. All students should try at least one practice test on the DESE website to get familiar with the new format. Fluency in test mechanics and in basic algebra topics will be a great help in getting a good score. Is the MCAS 2.0 mathematics test substantially different from the old tests? We can't say for sure because there is only one practice test available. But the sample test on the MCAS Pearson support site, the link of which you see on this screen, is substantially more difficult than the test administered over the last few years. The primary difference between MCAS 2.0 and the old MCAS is the level of understanding that students must demonstrate. Look at these questions from the old and new tests. Although students are tested on the volume of the cylinder in both questions, the old MCAS question simply asks the student to plug in the formula for the volume of a cylinder. But MCAS 2.0 asks students to make connections between two types of cylinders. Students have to use higher order thinking skills to answer the MCAS 2.0 question. In last year's test, 12 out of the 42 questions were classified as middle school standards. On this year's MCAS 2.0 practice test, no questions are classified as middle school standards. The two questions you see here will not be on the new 10th grade test. These questions were classified as 8th and 7th grade standard questions. Although this shift reflects the recent revisions of Massachusetts mathematical standards, the end result for students is a higher percentage of difficult questions. The types of questions on the new test are similar to the old test, except that there are two new categories: multiple select and technology enhanced items, which includes drag and drop, marking objects, plotting points on a plane, drawing or rotating objects, drawing graphs from given equations, using the equation editor, and pull-down menu answers. Refer to previous parts of this webinar for practicing these formats. Remember that there will be 8 constructed response questions on the 10th grade test this year. Only 4 of these questions will count, but we won't know which ones, so we have to answer all 8. Remind students that the first section of the constructed response question is generally pretty straightforward. Students can get some points just by doing parts of the response. For example, you get a point in this 8th grade example just by correctly identifying the vertex on the coordinated plane. Tests in all grades will have field test questions. Remind students that it's not a good idea to leave a constructed response question blank. Students should try their best to do some of the question, but they won't get any points for entering something that doesn't make sense. On the screen is an example of a student who made mistakes, which you can see by the circled answers, on a constructed response, but still received points. Note how the student wrote the equation correctly in part A, but entered an incorrect solution. Although the student got parts B and C correct, the student showed no work for part D and entered an incorrect answer. But this student still got 2 out of 4 possible points. Have students practice old constructed response questions in the Student Work Scoring Guide section of the DESE website. For more tips on improving constructed response answers, see my previous blog, The Formula Page is Your Friend, Improving Performance on MCAS Math, on the JFYNet website. This DESE chart shows the distribution of questions on the new test. It's pretty similar to the 2018 test, although that test had 4 short answer questions and 6 constructed response questions. This year's test will include 10 matrix or field test questions. Remember, these questions don't count, but we don't know which ones they are, so we have to try our best on all questions. There will be 6 1 or 2 point questions and 4 additional constructed response questions. That means students will have 8 constructed response questions on the test instead of 6. When students start to fatigue, they are more likely to skip constructed response questions. That's why it's more important than ever to practice constructed response questions. This DESE chart represents the percentage in each reporting category for MCAS 2.0 10th grade. These percentages match the distribution on the practice test. On the topic distribution chart, the algebra and number and quantity represent 50% of the 10th grade test. Since students generally need to answer correctly approximately 50% of the questions to score proficient, it's important to make sure they have a solid understanding of material from previous years. Review is essential for MCAS success. The standards that will be tested are available by going to the DESE link on this screen. This list includes most of the Massachusetts standards for 9th and 10th grade, so it doesn't really narrow down the content. Assemble standards include all standards that overlap between the Model Algebra 1, Model Geometry, and Model Mathematics 1, Model Mathematics 2 courses. Use this standards list as a reference to make sure students are not missing any areas to review. If students prepare for the test, they will feel more confident on test day. Even though students use their consumer technology every day, don't assume that they will understand how to navigate the new MCAS format. It's not like anything they have seen before. Don't take any chances. Reviewing content, getting familiar with the new format, navigating through the test, understanding the available tools, and practicing constructed response questions are the essential components for doing well on MCAS 2.0. Preparation is the key to success. Give your students a running start and help them build confidence. Then sit back and wait for the great results to roll in next fall. We hope these tips will give your students that extra edge on test day. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions or comments. We thank you for viewing this webinar. This has been a production of JFYNetWorks.